Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some incredibly fascinating ideas that might just completely dismantle how we've all been taught to think about learning and project management. Seriously, if you manage projects, lead teams, or honestly, even if you just want to optimize your own daily tasks, get ready. We are about to completely rethink your entire approach to improvement.
Let me ask you a direct question. When does learning actually occur in your work? I mean, really think about it for a second. Most of our traditional governance systems kind of just assume learning happens at these very specific designated moments, right? Things like your quarterly project reviews, formal stage gates, postmortems, or those classic, sometimes painful lessons learned workshops at the very end of a massive undertaking. But is that really how reality works? Well, spoiler alert, it absolutely isn't.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to look at the flaw of scheduled learning, reveal what's called the diamond framework, explore the fractal scale of work, understand constellations over linear tasks, establish some practical rhythms for learning, and finally, look at how to actually make improvement normal.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the flaw of scheduled learning.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that reality does not operate in these cleanly scheduled, predictable intervals. Reality unfolds continuously. Think about your average Tuesday morning. Honestly, even grabbing the wrong coffee order generates immediate feedback, right? Every single decision you make creates immediate consequences. Every action generates feedback right then and there. And every single one of those feedback loops, that is a golden opportunity for learning. If we sit around waiting for a formal postmortem 3 months down the line to actually process that feedback, that opportunity is already long gone. Scheduled learning is fundamentally flawed simply because it stubbornly ignores our continuous reality.
Which brings us to Section 2, the diamond framework revealed. Now, what's really interesting here is how the red diamond takes that messy, continuous reality we just talked about and brilliantly maps it out. This framework treats learning not as some isolated administrative chore, but as a tight cadence embedded directly within the work itself. Check out the 8-stage cycle. We start at the top with defined task, move into planning, then development, and down to implementation. But, and here's the magic, it doesn't just stop when the job is done. The cycle immediately swings back up through assessment, into reflection, extracting actionable lessons, and finally cultivating character, which, by the way, is basically just your team's improved judgment for the very next time around. It's this continuous, breathing rhythm of intention, action, evaluation, and adjustment.
Moving right along to Section 3, the fractal scale of work.
You see, the real secret of the diamond is that it's fractal. Now, a fractal, simply put, is a pattern that repeats across entirely different scales. You see them in nature all the time, like the infinite spirals of a Romanesco broccoli or the arms of a snowflake. The geometry of the cycle, those exact 8 stages we just looked at, remains perfectly constant. Literally, the only thing that changes is the scale of time and effort. This means that the exact same pattern of defining a task, implementing it, and reflecting on it happens whether a task takes 5 minutes or 5 months.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we call a micro diamond in action. Okay, let's say we have an apprentice sourcing water from mixing cement. It sounds like a totally brainless chore, right? But the diamond is actually right there. Defined task, water is required. Planning, where's the nearest supply? Development, grab a bucket and figure out a route. Implementation, actually collect the water. Assessment, hey, is there enough water and is it clean? Reflection, was that really the fastest way to do it? Lessons, you know what? There's actually a better route over by the scaffolding. Character, the apprentice builds better judgment and reliability for tomorrow. Boom, an entire 8-stage learning cycle completed in literally just a few minutes.
Now let's kind of zoom out and slow things down just a bit, because the exact same pattern applies to what we call professional and project diamonds. An architect drawing a single, highly intentional line on a blueprint is operating within a diamond. An engineer selecting variables for a calculation, or a contractor tightening a critical bolt. They are all in their own individual diamonds. The technical task changes, for sure, but the learning cycle absolutely does not. And this scales all the way up. A single wall becomes a diamond. A structural design package is a diamond. Or even an entire massive building project is just one single diamond. At this macro scale, these stages might occur over weeks or even months, but that core rhythm, it remains entirely unchanged.
All right, let's hit Section 4, constellations over linear tasks.
So traditional management absolutely loves to visualize projects as these neat, tidy, linear sequences. You know the drill. Task A perfectly leads to task B, which cleanly leads to task C. But if you have ever worked on a real project, especially in architecture or construction, you know firsthand that reality is rarely that tidy. Real projects are not straight lines. They are messy, simultaneous constellations. You've got multiple diamonds operating at the exact same time. The architect's diamond, the engineer's diamond, the fabricator's diamond, each of them has its own objectives, its own stakeholders, its own constraints, and its own immediate overlapping feedback loops. The real challenge of governance isn't just managing isolated tasks, it's coordinating the complex learning happening rapidly between all these simultaneous diamonds.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because the red diamond definitely doesn't exist in a vacuum. Compare our core work cycle to the broader context of the gray diamond here. It operates within a much larger environment driven by massive external forces. Notice the points on the gray diamond. You've got politics, the social milieu, economics, and the physical environment itself. These external pressures constantly, actively affect the internal tasks. This means the learning from our internal tasks has to constantly respond to these much broader realities. It's all connected.
And here is how they stack up into what we call interlocking diamonds, combining accountability with abundance. Remember those constellations we just talked about? Well, an architectural diamond connects directly to a structural diamond, which connects to fabrication and then right on to installation. Each cycle heavily influences the next, and each generates information the others desperately need to succeed. This is exactly where relational intelligence, which is essentially your team's ability to communicate clearly and actually trust each other, becomes absolutely essential. I mean, for this entire system to avoid collapsing, information must move. Lessons have to travel. Trust literally must exist between teams. You have to surface hidden assumptions and coordinate constantly. The Diamond Framework provides the structural rhythm that makes this high-level relational coordination actually possible.
Which leads us nicely into Section 5, Rhythms for Learning.
Because the diamond is fractal, we can actually use it to build incredibly practical repeating cadences for our teams. Let's break these down step by step. First up, the daily diamond. This happens every 24 hours. The focus here is entirely on the top half of the diamond. Define, plan, implement. As a leader, you need to be asking, what are we doing today? What immediate risks exist? What absolutely must be completed? The sole purpose here is maintaining tight daily alignment. Next is the weekly diamond. Every 7 days, you shift the focus to the bottom half. Assess and reflect. You ask, what happened this week? What worked? What completely failed? And what are we learning right now? The whole purpose of the weekly rhythm is to prevent constant fighting from becoming your team's normal state. Finally, the monthly diamond. Every 30 days, we look at the horizontal axis, lessons and character. You ask your team, what broader patterns are emerging? What habits are forming? What new things should become our standard practice? The purpose here is deep. It's to actively transform raw experience into permanent capability.
And finally, Section 6, Making Improvement Normal.
Let's anchor this concept in some foundational organizational psychology for a moment. Donald Schoen famously described the vital importance of reflective practice, and Peter Senge brilliantly argued that modern companies absolutely must become learning organizations. Well, the Diamond Framework provides the actual operational cadence to make those lofty academic goals a reality. Rather than waiting until a project completely closes out to learn anything, which we know doesn't work, learning gets embedded in every single scale of work. The individual task learns, the team learns, the project learns, the entire organization learns. And through these repeated, rhythmic cycles, the people themselves fundamentally change and grow. It's really powerful stuff.
So I want to leave you with this final critical question to ponder as we wrap up. Has your current governance rhythm made improvement normal, or is it still kind of just a happy accident when things go right? The true lasting contribution of the Diamond Framework isn't merely that it improves one specific project. Its profound value is that it creates a reliable, built-in rhythm where improvement is no longer the exception, it literally becomes the normal, everyday standard. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you build a more brilliant, learning-driven rhythm in your own work.